Guys, welcome back to what is probably the most, or is going to be the most emotional video that I've ever done, because right behind me, we're standing at the exact spot. We're on the corner of Church and Lispenard Street here in the borough of New York called Tribeca. Now, on September 11, 2001, 8:46 a.m., it was a very standard call for the fire department. There was what appeared to be a gas leak just behind me here. So if we go over here, I got a little bit of chills just being here, to be honest. So it's very famous footage, but not many people know exactly where it is. So Lispenard and Church Street, right behind me, man. I'm getting goosebumps just standing here, being here. Guys, Battalion Chief Joseph Pfeiffer, as I said, he was just doing a normal morning's routine, checking a gas call. This is the exact grate, all right? They were standing here checking. You guys have all probably seen this footage. The whole world's seen this footage. 8:46 and 40 seconds exactly. What sounded like a big jet, which we all know it was, came across the sky here, which doesn't usually happen here in New York. And man, I can't even, like, it's crazy standing here right now, guys. I think 9/11 is that thing where you guys all remember exactly where you were that day, and just to be standing here, man, I cannot wait to go and pay my respects at that site. But yeah, as the sound of the jet came over, they were down here, they turned around, they looked up, and it came across the sky here, where is now the One World Trade Center. What a crazy, crazy spot. Man, so the footage was captured by Jules Naudet. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but he was a French guy doing a documentary on Engine 7 Ladder 1, and he was documenting. That was the only known footage of the first plane crashing into the tower. What an absolutely crazy thing that happened. Here behind me, we have Engine 7 Ladder 1, which on the day of September 11, 2001, started out as a normal day for these everyday hero firefighters. Now, where we just came from on the corner of Lispenard and Church Street is where the gas leak, the call for the gas leak, that's where they all headed to. This documentary was being made by Jules and Duane Naudet. They were following the life of Proby firefighter Tony Benetatos. On that very fateful day, Tony was actually asked to stay at the firehouse, which was very common for probies back in the day. I don't know if it's still common now, but he was asked to stay at the firehouse, which inevitably might have actually saved his life. Now, on that day, when the gas leak came over, that only known footage of the site where we were at, Chief Battalion Joseph Pfeiffer and his crew got straight on the road and they headed down to the North Tower. Now, all 13 firefighters in this battalion and this Engine 7 Ladder 1, they all headed down there as well. With Tony stayed, he manned the calls, he looked after the fire station. If you've seen this documentary, I highly recommend you go and watch it. You'll see how Tony, as a young 23-year-old man, being a probie, handled himself that day. And the best thing is, this is actually called the Miracle House, or also known as Miracle on Duane Street, because although 343 brave men and women died that day from the fire department, all 13 of these heroes came back. And it's truly amazing to be here and just be part of this historic. And man, it's one of those things that, I'm not American, but the way that Americans, New Yorkers rallied together, and some of the stories you see, it feels so inspirational to be stepping the same grounds that these heroes have walked on. And I think now it's time to go to the memorial and check out Ground Zero. All right, guys, so we made it here to the North Tower on the west side. Now, this is exactly the same point that the first fire department chief, Joseph Pfeiffer, he came, and this is where they entered the building. Now, as you can see, the memorial waterfall here, everyone thinks that's the footprint of the towers, but actually these first rows of trees that wrap all the way around the site here, that is the footprint of where the tower was actually at. So as they ran in, man, the glass was shattered, there were people running out, and they set up a command post. So right over here, they would have entered in through the building here. And there were terrified people. Actual accounts were saying that it was like a bomb had gone off inside the lobby. We do now know that the actual elevator shafts, fire and airplane fuel came down the shaft and just exploded the whole thing. About 30 minutes later, the South Tower collapsed, and what happened then was all the firefighters were ordered to evacuate. Now, Pfeiffer being the first chief there, he made the order for everyone to come out. He didn't know that his brother, who was part of another fire department, was in that building that same day, and unfortunately, he would never make it out alive. So this here is the North Tower. I highly recommend coming out and seeing this beautiful memorial here. Every now and then they do cleaning, so where the South Tower right now is being cleaned, but there's always going to be one open, and I highly recommend coming out. We're going to go now do the museum tour and show you a little bit around the museum. It's about $36 for entry, and allow yourself about an hour and a half, 2 hours to do that. So let's go and check that out now. But it's a very sombering feeling. Each and every one of these names was a human life. And it goes on forever and ever. All right, guys, so the entrance to the museum is actually right at the start of the North Tower Memorial there. Today is pretty quiet today, so you can see all the lines here. I reckon some days it can be pretty busy, especially probably on the anniversary days. But you can also book your tickets online. So let's head on in there and check out this history of this crazy, crazy day in the life of New Yorkers, America, and just the world, man. Guys, just quickly, one thing I forgot to mention was you'll see all these names here, right? And what you'll notice is when you go around, there's actually some names that have a little flower sticking out of them. And the heartbreaking thing behind that is it actually means it's their birthday today. So every time it's someone's birthday, you can see right here. See that? So I don't know who puts those on if family members come out, but yeah. Every single time you come here, you'll see flowers on different names, denoting that it's their birthday. It's been a long, long time that I've wanted to come and do this, and I don't know how to describe it. I'm excited to see it, but also just it's an emotional feeling, I can tell you that. If you come up the stairs here, there's an auditorium, and every 20 minutes there's a movie that's being played. So we're gonna go check this out and then go back for a walking tour straight through the rest of the museum here. Thank you very much.
Last call for the 435 call, folks. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming today. My name's David. Facing Crisis, America Under Attack is a film produced by the 9/11 Memorial Museum for exclusive screening in this auditorium. The film will run for approximately 15 minutes. What I'd like y'all to do is just please take note of the two exits in the back of the auditorium. At the end of the film, we're all going to exit out to the front of the auditorium through that door right over there. Now it's the time to please turn off and silence all cell phones, electronic.
Wow. Guys, look at this. This is a photo taken 16 minutes before they hit. That's crazy. I wonder who took that photo. Alright guys, quick note, from here on out I'm going to voice over a lot of these parts because on the day, being a museum, I didn't want to be disrespectful to anyone. It is generally a quiet environment. It's a place for showing your respect, and you know, I didn't want to be that guy with my camera out and being loud and just, yeah. So from here on out, I did take mental notes on the day, and I do know, watching this footage again, I know exactly how I felt at that moment. I can only imagine what these people were feeling. These are
real pictures of the New Yorkers that were there witnessing in real time what had happened. As we walk on down, these are what they call the slurry walls. They actually survived the attacks and stopped the Hudson River from flooding in. Could have made a bad day even worse.
This is exactly where we are in the original Trade Center underneath it. That's crazy.
This was one of the most emotional parts of me. Coming up to this wall that was covered in missing posters. These were flyers that family members had put up. They were desperately hoping to find their loved ones in the days after. Standing in front of it, you can really feel the heartbreak. And I can only imagine what those families were going through. Even now, it makes me emotional talking about it. It hits you on a very deep level. These are known as the survivor stairs. These are the last visible remains above ground from the original World Trade Center. On 9/11, hundreds of people used them as an escape route to safety. When I was standing here, you just realize how many hundreds of lives these stairs helped save. These are the box columns that made up the base of the Twin Towers. It's crazy, they're one of the only things that are still in the exact same spot where the towers were built. Now this is an art installation called Trying to Remember the Colour of the Sky on That September Morning. It's created in 2014 by artist Spencer Finch. It's made up of 2,983 watercolour squares, one for each life that was lost. Each shade of blue is different because no two people remember the sky in quite the same way. Standing here, it's actually such a good and powerful reminder of both the scale and loss, and the individuality of every single person. Here's a section of remains from the antenna that once stood on top of the North Tower. What really amazed me was the size of this piece. And then you see the photo next to it, and where it came from, you realise it was just a small section, about halfway up the antenna. It's massive, yet it was only a fraction of the whole thing. You can also just see how twisted and mangled it became. This is one of the recovered elevator motors from inside the Twin Towers. As you can see, this thing's huge, weighing several tons. They were so big, and actually some of the fastest elevator motors in the world in the early 1970s. They had to carry up to 55 people at a time, and thousands of people every single day. This part of the museum really hit me. It tells the story of Fire Department Ladder Company 3, one of the fire companies that responded to the North Tower on September 11. Their mission that morning was to help evacuate civilians and get as many people out as possible. By 9:21 a.m, members of Ladder 3 had already climbed up to the 35th floor. Their captain, Patrick "Paddy" Brown, couldn't reach the command post directly, so he found a working office phone and called a Manhattan dispatcher. He described what he was seeing: burn victims, people trying to make their way down the stairs, and fires raging above the 75th floor. Despite all that, he made it very clear they were still going up. In his final recorded transmission, Captain Brown said, "3 truck, and we're still heading up." Not long after, at 10:28 a.m, the North Tower collapsed. All 11 responding members of Ladder Company 3 were inside the building. Their story is a reminder of the incredible bravery and sacrifice of the firefighters that day, climbing up while everyone else was heading down. This section of the museum showcases a collection of custom-built motorcycles, each one created as a tribute to 9/11. And then there's this one, the bike with perhaps the most powerful story of them all. It belonged to firefighter Gerard Baptiste from Ladder 9, Engine 33. Just weeks before the attacks, Gerard bought this old 1979 Honda CB750 for $100. It was a wreck, rusted, missing parts, barely held together. His mates at the firehouse even joked about it when he bought it because it looked like junk. After he was killed in the North Tower, his fellow firefighters and volunteers decided to finish what he started. Over the next 15 months, they rebuilt the bike from the ground up. Today it's known as the Dream Bike. What began as a broken down motorcycle has become a rolling memorial. It's a reminder not just of Gerard, but of the resilience, love and brotherhood that carried on long after that day. This is a column from the South Tower. When the tower collapsed, the force was so extreme it actually folded this multi-ton piece of steel over. The crazy thing is you can walk right up to it and touch it. The steel is so thick and yet it bent like it was nothing. It's really hard to kind of wrap your head around and process. This here is known as the last column. It was the final piece of steel removed from ground zero during the cleanup in 2002. Rescue and recovery workers covered it with photos, messages and tributes to the people and companies who were lost. It became a symbol of the end of the recovery effort and also of remembrance. When you see it here, it's covered in writing and memorabilia. Like honestly, it really makes you stop. Another part of the museum talks about the dust and debris that covered Lower Manhattan after the towers fell. What's crazy is just how far it spread. People miles away were still breathing it in. For so many first responders, survivors, and even locals who lived or worked nearby, that dust wasn't just something to clean up. It led to serious health problems that are still being dealt with today. And beyond the physical side effects, the thing that really struck me is the mental side too. PTSD, trauma, anxiety, things that can last a lifetime. It really shows that 9/11 didn't end when the towers came down. The impact has carried on for years and still part of people's lives now. Here is a scale model of Osama bin Laden's compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. This is where he was finally found and killed in 2011, nearly 10 years after the attacks. This model was actually used by the US forces to plan the raid. Next to it is a single brick recovered from the compound. It's a reminder of how that chapter of the story came to an end. This installation is called Faces of Ground Zero. It's a series of giant portraits taken by photographer Joe McNally in the weeks after 9/11. He set up the world's largest Polaroid camera, literally the size of a room, and captured these powerful life-size images of the first responders, survivors and family members. What's really crazy is how real and personal they feel. You're not just looking at history, you're looking straight into the eyes of the people who lived it. It really puts a human face to the story. Here they show the CCTV footage from across the Hudson River, looking straight towards the World Trade Center. You can actually see the moment the first plane hits. Even though we all know what happened, watching it from this raw camera angle makes it feel so real, like you're standing there that morning, seeing it unfold, the blue sky, and just a normal day in New York City. Here you can see newspapers from the morning of September 11th, printed before the attacks happened. Just normal headlines about everyday events. Looking at them now, it's crazy to think how quickly everything changed later that day and the subsequent news headlines the next morning. This section of the museum has some of the wreckage from the planes used in the attacks. Here you can see pieces of the fuselage, the outer shell of the jet, twisted and torn apart from the impact. There are also smaller fragments, parts of the landing gear, bits of metal that were once part of the wings and body of the aircraft. What's crazy is just how recognisable some of it still is. Even after everything those planes went through, you can still see the shape, the structure, and you're reminded that these are once full-size passenger jets carrying people that morning. Seeing these pieces up close makes the scale of it feel real in a different way. We've all seen the footage, but standing here in front of the wreckage, it really hits you. This isn't just history in a video clip, it's right here in front of you, bent and broken from that day. And here we have the helmet worn by Chief Joseph Pfeiffer on 9/11. I mentioned his story earlier in the video, but here you can actually see the helmet itself. Here's the infamous video camera used by filmmaker Jules Naudet on 9/11. If you ever get the chance to come to New York, I can't recommend this enough. Seeing it in person is such a different experience. It's powerful, emotional, and something you'll never forget. I've wanted to come here for such a long time, and I'm so glad I finally made it here. Just a quick reminder, guys, before you head off, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Also, YouTube's just rolled out a new hype button, so if you'd like to support the channel directly, hitting that means the world to me. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
Although it's not the last time